To start off our conversation, Sri Lanka is in an economic recovery phase, I would say, and it's looking good for the construction industry from where we are standing. But you would have more insights regarding this. Can you tell us the state of the industry right now?
The construction industry went through a very rough period during the last 2 years, that's 2023 and 2024. Macroeconomic issues, the construction industry got impacted, both the retail sector and the infrastructure sector. This year, we see stabilization and there's a lot of positive sentiment related to construction industry. With the government's ambition to grow GDP by about 5%, we expect that the construction industry will also catch up, not to the pre-2023 levels. If you look at the construction sector, activity versus what it used to be in 2022, there's almost a 50% contraction. We established that it will stabilize and start growing slowly, but the coming years we see some very positive signs.
How important and urgent is it to make sure that these partially constructed buildings are completed?
It's not good for the economy, it's not good for the environment, because when you have partially constructed buildings, recently we saw some fires in some buildings and it causes a lot of health hazards. As an economy, as a country, as also the environment, it's very important that these projects are getting completed, and now we see some of the projects which got held the last 2 years coming back and getting completed.
Sri Lanka's construction industry is making a comeback. We spoke about all of this and more with Thusith Gunawarnasuriya. Stay tuned.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is construction industry review, and I'm here with the COO of Siam City Cement, Thusith Gunawarnasuriya. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
To start off our conversation, Sri Lanka is in an economic recovery phase, I would say, and it's looking good for the construction industry from where we are standing. But you would have more insights regarding this. Can you tell us the state of the industry right now?
After a peak in 2022, the construction industry went through a very rough period during the last 2 years, that's 2023 and 2024. Because of the macroeconomic issues, the construction industry got impacted, both the retail sector and the infrastructure sector, and it was degrowing. So this year, we see stabilization and there's a lot of positive sentiment related to construction industry, because construction is seen as a key indicator of an economy, where it is driven by GDP, including several other factors. So this year, with the government's ambition to grow GDP by about 5%, we expect that the construction industry will also catch up, not to the pre-2023 levels, but at least to have 7 to 8% growth in some of the sectors, not all the sectors, driving an overall growth of about 5%. Right now, if you look at the construction sector, activity versus what it used to be in 2022, there's almost a 50% contraction, which has affected the industries as well as the people who have their livelihood depending on the construction industry. So this year, we established that it will stabilize and start growing slowly, but the coming years, we see some very positive signs.
And which sectors do you see the most growth?
This year, we are looking at the infrastructure, because government, even in the recent budget, has allocated quite a lot of money to infrastructure development, including the roads, bridges, some of the rural projects that they want to do related to water, sanitization, etc. So we expect the bulk cement demand, which is the industrial sector, driving infrastructure to grow faster compared to retail sector. Now, retail sector is dominated by the individual house builders, and the people went through very hard economic challenges, the situations related to their personal finances during the last couple of years, and a lot of people have migrated. So there is less demand right now in retail property sector, in real estate development, but we see the infrastructure sector. And the second sector that we expect to really grow are the condominiums and the apartments.
Yes.
Because now whatever that was partially completed is getting completed, so we expect more demand to be there.
You paved the way to my next question. Partially complete. We saw a lot of projects just being halted in the previous year. So how important and urgent is it to make sure that these partially constructed buildings are completed?
So a lot of these partially constructed projects in Colombo, in western and suburban areas, these are mostly driven by local companies and sometimes large scale entrepreneurs. Now, the cash flow of these projects are either through pre-sold apartments or properties or through partial payments. So when the construction gets suspended midway through the project, it has a major impact on the person who has invested on that project, and also the clients who have already paid an advance or who are waiting to get the house after making the complete payment. So clearly it's not good for the economy, it's not good for the environment, because when you have partially constructed buildings, recently we saw some fires in some buildings, and it causes a lot of health hazards, including diseases like dengue, which causes the mosquito breeding in this abundant suspended construction projects, and then creating a lot of health hazards. So as an economy, as a country, as also the environment, it's very important that these projects are getting completed. And now we see some of the projects which got held for the last 2 years coming back and getting completed.
Things are looking good.
Looking much better.
We are also seeing that the cost of construction is reducing. Can you give us some insights about that?
With the economic crisis, with the devaluation of the rupee, the construction material cost also went up significantly.
Yes.
The reason is, while there are some locally manufactured construction materials, if you look at the construction of a building, civil construction, about 10 to 20% is coming from main raw materials like cement, steel, aggregates, etc. Then you have all the items that is required for finishing, completing bathrooms, etc., adding up to about another 30%. About 40% of the construction cost is coming from the labor, the masons, the helpers, the contractors, all that. So with the economic crisis, with the rupee getting devalued, some of these key construction material prices went up, and also the labor cost went up. So the construction cost of a household unit almost doubled. Now we see a reduction in the material prices, because rupee, which went up almost to 400, has now stabilized slightly below 300 or at 300. With that, the imported cost of raw materials and finished goods which are needed for construction has come down. Right. That has an impact on the overall construction cost. Where we have not seen a reduction is the labor cost, which went up, which was almost doubled as well. We do not see any signs of that coming down, which still impacts the overall construction, whereas the construction cost right now, even if you look at per square feet or per unit, still significantly higher than what it used to be.
Is there enough labor, or is there a lack of labor as well?
Right now it's a tricky and a funny situation, because almost 10% of the labor force, that's about 2 million people, used to be employed in the construction sector. And with the collapse of the sector, it went to a little above 1 million. So if you look at the overall workforce, definitely a lot of people lost their livelihood in construction and went into different segments. What has happened over the last 2 years that a lot of the skilled workforce has migrated out of Sri Lanka. So if you look at some of the skilled construction workers, it's difficult to find them in Sri Lanka right now because they have moved on to better paying greener pastures. But overall construction, if you look at employment versus pre-crisis, we are still at a much lower level. Only about 7.5% of the workforce is now employed in the construction industry.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about construction industry.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with the COO of Siam City Cement, Thusith Gunawarnasuriya. We spoke a lot about the recovery and state of the industry. If I can ask you a question in a slightly different angle, like you said, it takes a lot of different stakeholders to make the industry, and we are seeing a lot of suppliers, local, foreign, coming in. How important or challenging is it to manage all these stakeholders whilst ensuring that there's good competition?
Having healthy competition is very important to an industry because then you are able to innovate when there are cost pressures, when there are price pressures, and then also you give a good quality product to the consumers where they also enjoy the benefits of having good competition. Having said that, if you look at the installed cement capacity in Sri Lanka right now is about 12 million tons per annum. The market is at around 5 million tons per annum, so which means that our capacity utilization given the investments in Sri Lanka is less than 50% for most of the players. Now, key cement players are distributed across the island, mostly around the ports. So, when you have very low asset utilization, when you have very low capacity utilization, that means that your cost of production per ton goes up because of the fixed cost component, because you need to keep the plants running. So, that has clearly impacted. But it has also created a situation in the market where there is very heavy price competition.
Right.
So sometimes it becomes a little unhealthy because you are trying to undercut another competitor. So what we try to do as an industry, as the market leader, is to maintain price stability and lead with the pricing. So we use our brands, we use our technical strength to be the leader in setting the price in the industry, where you set very reasonable competitive prices which are affordable to the people who really want to get into construction right now. But with the low capacity utilization, there is always a lot of projects that are being taken in different ways. So if you look at the other stakeholders other than the cement manufacturers, it's mostly the government, the private sector who purchase cement. So there what we encourage is transparency, clear visibility into the procurement practices to avoid any unethical practices like bribery, corruption coming into the decision making criteria of the construction industry. So as a organization, we prevent or we really advocate to maintain this transparency and the business ethics.
Interesting. You also mentioned something that innovation will come out of healthy competition. If we focus on innovation in terms of technological advancements also, how is the industry faring and how can we ensure that it grows along with the industry growth?
If you look at the global best practices, the innovation and the construction industry has moved a long way. Now, Sri Lanka is predominantly concrete, brick mortar type of a construction driven country. But if you look at steel structures, if you look at wooden structures, the world has really moved with some of these innovations. And certain countries have now started to print 3D houses. So it has gone to a really another level. We expect our market to get there, but it will take time. So market will need to mature, market will need to be more receptive to advanced construction concepts. While that happens, what we do is we try to make construction more sustainable. So more environmental friendly materials, going into green buildings, precast concrete structures where you cut down the construction duration, so you can save a lot of cost. Things like that are being brought into the industry. And if you look at certain other countries, especially the Western world, a lot of robotics are being used for construction. But in Sri Lanka, right now it's not viable. But to a certain scale, now the design elements are being done using artificial intelligence, for example. And a lot of highly skilled work is being done using the computer, superpowers, artificial intelligence, etc., which has a certain advantage for construction. But I think right now the focus for Sri Lankan constructors is to be more sustainable in selecting the raw materials and also the construction methodologies, how they design their buildings. For example, to use more daylight, like you're doing right now. So to be more open to these concepts so that you can really control your construction costs.
Thusith, it has been such an interesting conversation. My last question to you is, like you said, things are looking good, the picture is looking positive. What do you foresee for the local construction industry in the next few years?
So we clearly see that the government has a focus on growing the economy of the country. So when economy of a country grows, that is definitely a driver for the construction industry also to grow. And from where we are right now, we see very positive developments in the industrial sector with the government driving the infrastructure sector. We see large scale projects coming in. On top of that, if the ambition of foreign direct investment, which was presented recently in the budget, if that materializes, that will also be a very positive factor for the construction industry. And if you look at the development across the country, I think the silver lining is the tourism industry, where you will need a lot of rooms, restaurants, hotels to be created, and that will give a lot of benefit to the construction industry and the people who are involved in this industry. So the next 2 to 3 years, I think, is going to be good for the construction industry, with a lot of positive sentiment materializing into demand.
Lovely. That's a lovely positive note. We've been in conversation with the COO of Siam City Cement, Thusith Gunawarnasuriya. Thank you very much for an interesting interview.
Thank you very much. It was lovely being here.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.